She is the 2012 TideQuest winner. And we can expect it from her on the presentation deck, the process that she went through, the advice that she has, and a little bit of her own presentation in the form of a presentation deck for investors. Diana is life sciences executive. She was earlier entrepreneur in residence with Health Technology Exchange. She has 25 years of experience in pharma and biotechnology. She has experience in advancing therapeutics products through all stages of development, from discovery and target identification to manufacturing technology transfer, and early to late stage clinical development. She has helped secure over $100 million in equity financing from private and public capital markets, and has assisted companies through acquisition, partnership, and IP. She also was recently honored by Health Technology Exchange for her new company called Simple Systems. Let's welcome Diana.
So I'm really honored to be here today. As Lalit mentioned, we were the 2012 TideQuest winners, so our pitch must have appealed to somebody. We also, more importantly, shortly after TideQuest last year, we closed a $2 million angel round in the summer of last year, which was the largest angel round in a life sciences technology company ever here in Ontario. So I think there's hope, there's money out there, there's money on the sidelines. If you have the right story, I would encourage everybody to do that. What I'd like to do today is really, the investor pitch is really about communicating your business plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about the importance of that plan and that document. But let's talk about the pitch, because that was one of the things that we obviously did well. I've done a lot of pitches in my life. I've also heard a lot of pitches, because one thing that wasn't mentioned is I spent many years working with venture capitalists as a reviewer, advisor, and making investments as well. So I heard lots and lots of pitches as well. I tend to break it down into sort of three main sections. The first one is you've got to grab their attention right away. They see lots of things. If you haven't grabbed their attention in the first couple of slides, they'll probably tune you out. Okay? So again, it's getting their attention and getting it in a way that, as Jeff mentioned, tell them the problem. I'll show you how we've done that, okay? After you've gotten their attention, you need to build the credibility. Why is it that what you're doing is real? How well do you know it? How well is your plan defined to get to market? How credible are the people that you've surrounded yourself with? And I'll demonstrate how we communicated that in our pitch document, because you don't have a lot of time. You've got 15 to 20 minutes. Okay? And then what you need to do is convince them that of all the investments that they're going to see, and they see lots of investments, whether it's at a competition or whether it's in the normal day of work, they see lots of things. Why would they choose yours as the investment opportunity? What is it that makes you more attractive than the guy that they saw 5 minutes before you, or the guy they're going to see right after you leave? Or gal that they're going to see. So I'm going to give you some of the slides from Simple Systems presentation last year. I've had to sanitize it. We have a lot of medical data, and we have some confidentiality issues. And this is going to be put on the net here. So what I'd like to do, though, is this was our first slide in terms of the problem. What we do is we have a technology that will restore voluntary movement to individuals who have lost the use of their arms as a result of a stroke or a spinal cord injury or traumatic brain injury. That's pretty profound. When people don't have their arms, they become quite dependent. You can't do normal activities of daily living. It's a very personal thing. So our slide speaks to the problem. It personalizes the problem because everyone can relate to. God forbid that you or someone you know has a stroke. Okay? God forbid you can't dress yourself in the morning. But it also has a huge economic cost, because if you have to pay someone to help you do that, there's a huge burden. So we talked about the problem, we personalized it, and then we monetized that problem. We took data that you can find and that's real to show just how large an economic burden there exists when people have to depend on long-term care to help them do activities of daily living. And they can't go back to work, or they can't do that. Because stroke, quite frankly, is no longer a disease of the very old. The average age is continuing to drop. So we've now got their attention. We've personalized it. There's a page. Usually somebody knows somebody who's had a stroke, just because the prevalence of stroke is so great. We've monetized the problem, and then we're going to provide them with what our solution is. It's a very simple graphic that we've used here, and it speaks to a couple of things. Because our solution is actually very complex technology. It's a combination of very sophisticated algorithms that drive muscle movements in normal fashions that have never been done before. So we have intellectual property around that. We have a very proprietary stimulator that helps to execute this. And what we're really doing is we're retraining the brain and tapping into something we call neuroplasticity. Now those are big words, but what amazed me is that John Q. Public, or even the investor groups, would know those words or understand them. So sometimes I'm not quite sure we have to, as Jeff said, bring it down to a grade 8 level. Investors are often very sophisticated people. They've been very successful. Do not be afraid. I mean, I guess I'm going to argue a little bit. Don't be afraid of using some technology and technological terms. Not too many, but just enough, and make sure that they might resonate or explain them, define them to them, okay? So that's what we do. What we've communicated in this is a little bit about what the technology is. There's some software component here, there's a hardware component, and we have patents. I haven't told them what the patents are, but I've told them that I have IP. They'll ask me later for the details, and they did. The market. On this slide, one of the things that I objected to when I was an investor or when I was an entrepreneur in residence, I'd have people come in and say, I have a solution for pain, let's say, and almost everybody in their lifetime experiences pain, so it's a huge market. Yeah, except that your solution might not be the right solution for that pain product. So what we did was we took real data and said, how large is the market for spinal cord injury? What's the incidence? Every year, how many people have a stroke or spinal cord injury? And we took data we could get, that we could validate, and we could reference against very validated references in the US, Canada, and Europe. When we got beyond those jurisdictions, the numbers got really fuzzy, or they didn't exist. So we didn't reference things that didn't exist. Okay? And the numbers are big. I mean, it's almost 900,000 new patients every year, and especially the ones that we want to treat that have the severe paralysis. That's a big number for people who know that, because if you think about it, what would you pay to get a prescription to get the use of your paralyzed arm or arms back? And if you ask that question to an investor, you get all kinds of answers, anything from priceless, so it makes it really hard to know what to price this at, to large numbers anyway. People are willing to pay a significant amount to get their independence back. So they can do the math on this. If it's almost 1 million people a year and you do the math, it becomes really big numbers really fast. So we've told them the size of the market. It's a simple graphic, but it's got real numbers. They can go back and they can reference them. Jeff mentioned, talk about the competition. There is competition. And I will say that if you say you have no competition, I would suggest that there's probably no market as well. I think that you may not have direct competition. You may have a very unique solution. You may be completely disruptive in the way you're going to approach it. But if you define a problem, there's someone trying to do it. It'll probably be awkward or whatever. But just tell people you know. What I'm going to mention are two things. Talk about the current competition. So we have a lot of sort of gadgets and robots that are out there for rehab right now, and I won't go through the various things, but we just graphically displayed it. And what the difference was is that none of these actually destroy voluntary movement. No one has shown it in clinical studies. No one has been able to demonstrate it. Sometimes it's really just to get rid of the physical therapist, not get rid of the physical therapist, but take the load off the physical therapist and have a robot do it instead of a physical therapist help you do it. So it's really not solving the problem, because the current problem doesn't restore voluntary movement, or current strategies don't restore voluntary movement. Or you get someone to wear a permanent orthotic, which are the devices you see in the bottom, or the top left and bottom right hand corners. And patients don't like that, because it still doesn't give them what they want, which is their independence back. The one thing I would also encourage you to do is do not look at the existing competition, but also talk about what might be emerging. Be aware of what your competitors are doing and what else is out in the market. So we had a slide that talked about, okay, there is no solution, there's a lot of research. We're doing implants, we're talking about stem cells, we're talking about gene therapies to get people who've had spinal cord injury back. These are all very invasive, they're very expensive, and we had a very elegant, non-invasive solution. So right there, I've just taken all my competition away that might be coming forward. Okay? So make sure that you demonstrate your awareness of emerging threats as well, not just what exists or what existed 10 years ago. This is a busy slide, and I didn't really mean for my any of the investors in the audience to read it, but what I wanted to demonstrate was we were a virtual company. We had like 2 people, myself and the founder, but we had surrounded ourselves with experienced advisors, and we had networked with people who had given us advice, who had sat down with us as friends. Collectively, these people had over 100 years of experience at taking technologies from a laboratory and making commercial products out of them. And that validated it. These are the people that helped us either in, understanding the product development side, that would be Dr. Harold Wadlinger down there, or understanding the software side and how that fits into a healthcare, and that would be Andy Hind, who's at AGFA Healthcare. He's a vice president there, but he's a friend, and he would sit down with us and do that. This validated that the things that we put together have a lot of experience has gone into providing us guidance on the roadmap of what we will need to do and the investment we will need to make in order to get to a commercial product. Our business model, and it was really simple. This is how we're going to make money. We have 3 different revenue streams for our first product we've identified. We will either lease or sell the hardware components and the workstations, as we call them. We need to train the therapists. They need to be very specifically trained on the things. So we have certification courses, and they need to pass them. They need to pay for them, and they need to pass them. And they need to get recertified for upgrades as we go forward. And then we have a software prescription key that is unique for every patient. So every patient is a revenue stream for us that gets treated with our technology. Very simple slide. There was some additional information. I've taken it out of here because I can't put the numbers in for what we're projecting for this particular audience. But under there I had how much we would make per item that we sold, and then what we thought we would make on each one. Simple, but I guess effective. Now what I'd like to do is, these are the slides I can't share with you in terms of our details, but just sort of supporting what Jeff said is, do your revenue projections. Do not do is, we're going to get a percentage of a market. Tell them how you're going to build this from the bottom up. The first, it'll take a runway to get to market. Your first market will be early adopters, probably. Maybe that's what you want to say. This is what it'll be, and this is how it's grow. And this is identify the key event that will actually trigger a fairly significant increase in sales, because that's a milestone that you're working towards. Okay? If you have, and we in the medical devices can't really show customer traction very well because we can't sell until we get Health Canada or FDA clearance or any of those others, and we still need the money to get to that clearance. So that's our limitation. What we were able to show, though, is that we had clinicians and hospitals, major rehab hospitals, who were really interested, knew about the technology, and already made inquiries about securing it. It's almost sort of like it's not necessarily a sale, it's kind of a soft interest, but for us it is. For people who don't have regulatory hurdles like Health Canada, you could probably find a way of showing that early traction. You may not yet, but how will you even get to that early traction and communicating how you might get there is an important part of your presentation. And don't forget to tell them how much money you're asking them for. Don't forget to tell them how you're going to spend that money and what those activities are going to be and what milestones you will achieve. And when you achieve those, don't forget to tell them how much more valuable you think this company is going to be and why you think that's going to be true. It will demonstrate that you have thought through why this is going to be important to them because they're here to make money off of their investment in you. We always get asked about the exit strategy, and this is always a difficult one, I think, because unless you have a very, I think there are two things what I've learned over the last couple of decades of doing early startups is that if your focus is, I'm going to grow this company to sell it to companies X or Y or Z, then your whole business plan is focused on selling the company. Not adding value, but selling the company. You start off with that mentality. I think the way I prefer to do it is, everything I'm going to do is going to add value, because people actually don't sell companies, people buy companies, and people buy value that they perceive. So if you've built value, you will have many people who will want to buy you. Slightly different approach. You can grow companies to be, you don't always have to sell it to get a return on investment or the investment back. They may not initially want you to sell it. They may want you to grow it to a point where it is, but they might want some dividends. And can you even expect them to give that to, or can you expect to give it to them? Still no harm in thinking about taking a really significant company. If you have a large market, you've got a full product solution, and you have a pipeline of products. So you're not just a feature, but you have a full pipeline of products you could develop. You could consider taking this public ultimately. And then finally, identify some examples, and in our case there were a couple of examples where companies in our space had recently been acquired in the last 2-3 years. Do not go back 5 years. Try to do a 2-year window, okay? Or less. One thing I'd want to talk to you, and this is my last slide, but after the pitch deck, if you've done things successfully, you've gotten their attention and their interest, be prepared, because they will ask you for a full business plan, because they need to do their due diligence. They may not read the executive summary, or they may only read the executive summary or be a senior person, but they'll assign someone to go through that business plan if they're really serious about giving you money. Think about putting together your what I call a due diligence package. And this is having all of your documentation in order and having all of your references in order and everything else, so that when they want to make the investment and you're trying to close the deal, you can find your articles of incorporation even. Not everybody can, right? Close the deal. Build a world-class company after that. But remember, your business plan is also partially the operational plan you present to your directors when you have a board. It's how you communicate to your staff where you're going. It's how you check all the time on where you're meeting your metrics. And the budgets that you develop to develop that business plan and make that business case are all the things that you need to operationalize your company as well. It is a living document. It will change with time. But it is a document you will revisit. So it's, that it is a document that's worthwhile. It doesn't always have to have perfect English in it, but it really does have to have your ideas organized in it. Because you need to lead them, and you need to have people understand where you're leading them. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and I guess I'll wait for questions later, or now.
Question.
Very good talk. I just had a question. I'm in the medical device community as well. And at what point did you make the decision that you now needed to go to the angel investment of, say, $2 million investment versus the 150,000 here, 100,000 there, and so forth. What were the metrics that made your team decide, or yourself decide that, okay, now we need this larger chunk of money to get us to where we need to be?
Well, our business plan actually said for us to get to a point where we would get Health Canada clearance and be able to submit to both Canada and, let's say, Europe, and get to market and start getting some revenues, that I actually needed just over $3 million, right? That's what my business plan said. So I actually went out to the angel investment community, and this is an interesting story, and I would hear things like, oh, you can't ask for more than $500,000 from angels. I said, but $500,000 only gets me into trouble, because I don't really get anything good out of it. I think what happened is we found the right angels. I mean, we did a lot of pitches and we spoke to a lot of people. We eventually found people who understood our space a little bit more, started to do it, and then it was almost a groundswell. And it was, okay, if we can put this money together and we can get there, then we will get to market faster. We were realistic about negotiating the valuation and what we would give to the investors. We made promises, but we also showed them that if they only gave us a little bit of money, we would all be in trouble in about 6 to 7 months. But the business plan was a key part of communicating that. And we actually were oversubscribed. We could have raised more. We stopped it too. Yes?
So the question comes in is, for example, let's say...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Should we stand up and talk? Can you hear me better now?
A
Can you
little
hear
bit.
me better now? Oh, okay, I don't know. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So the question is, for example, let's say if you, for example, it takes you $100,000 to build your prototype, right?
Right.
It takes you $200,000 to take the product to market, right? Just an example, right? So if you want to raise $100,000 and bring your valuation up, and then raise it $200,000, then overall you're gonna lose less money, right? I mean, that's part of your company, it's like a share.
Yeah.
Whereas if you raise $300,000 right off the bat to finish a prototype and then do commercialization, then you're gonna, for example, lose 50% of your company rather than losing 20%. So how are you gonna go around that?
It's a negotiation. I think, I don't know how to answer generically a question like that for everybody. I think every case is different. I think you need to look at it.
So in other words, does it make sense? Like, does it make sense to risk that you're going to be able to raise an extra $200,000 in 6 months, and you just work through increasing your valuation, or it makes sense when you get the money, you just get everything right off the bat?
If people are offering you money and you can live with the terms, take it.
Oh,
Take it. That would be my advice. All right. If you can live with the terms and you have the money available, I would take it.
oh, okay. That's good advice.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
One of the things that's been happening over the past few years is the rise of the lean startup and the lean startup methods. And one thing that's common practice with it is that they stop using full business plan and move towards lean business canvases. Now, you said for investment, going after a full business plan. Where would you distinguish the two? Like, where should you go after a full business plan versus a lean business canvas model?
Well, I think the lean business canvas model is your storybook that you need to use to develop your thoughts and organize them and put it in. The lean canvas itself, though, doesn't have enough. I think once you start, because we use that kind of storybook or lean canvas business model anyway, it allows you to populate the high-level ideas. But when you start drilling down into it to develop your business plan and understand how much it's going to take, so how much money does it actually take me to get from here to here, and how long will that take, and you drill down into it, that's what your business plan, it tells you, when will I get there, who do I need, what do I need to, who do I need to hire, what do I need to develop. And I guess, I'm speaking from an industry where, our timelines are a little bit longer than perhaps in software. But technology companies, whether of any sort, to build a really solid company takes years anyway. You can get some early money, but it takes time. And I do encourage people to, it doesn't have to be a fancy document, but please organize. I think you have to organize your thoughts to run a business.
Okay.
Oh.
How many potential investors did you turn down because they wanted too much?
Well, we were oversubscribed, and we had investors that we did walk away from. Yes. How many? A few. I can't share that.
Just pick
There. No, I'm sorry. That's some information within our company. Okay. But we did have investors that we would walk away from, and I've done this before. I mean, in other companies that I've done, it's, you go out and you raise it, and in the end you negotiate the deal that you like with the people. If you're fortunate to have multiple term sheets to deal with, and we had 4 term sheets.
We'll take one last question.
Given that you're in the medical space, how did you identify potential angels? I mean, given that there are 10 or 12 angel groups and individuals around, did you have a selection process to pitch to?
We pitched to anyone who would listen to us. That's my simple answer. Is we would go to everyone, and we would often be told, well, these people don't invest in medical devices. We found that was the wrong assumption. We actually have some angels who've never invested in medical devices invest in us this time.
Thank you so much, Karen.